BDSM and non-standard relationships,
Star exchange and polyamory,
sacred sexuality and fetishes, as well as simply fun kink.
You'll find shows on these topics and more at eroticawakeningpodcast.com.
Might be looking the wrong way, so if I miss it, say it again. Yeah. Do you want me to get in there?
I will say, Gray, that these are hypercardioid dynamics, so you do have to be like an inch away.
Ah, I see.
So maybe just forget the stand.
Yeah, I think I'll just
that's better.
Bring it up here.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, this is much better. My goodness. I will tell our studio audience, if you have questions, you're going to have to speak very loudly because we have headphones on. So just wave your arms wildly if you have a question, and we'll attempt to read your lips.
If they have a question, they can just come up and I hand them the mic.
That's true. Good point.
That way you get a good audio quality for the Roadcast, right?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so should we try and make this official with the official Roadcast opening?
Sure. I mean, let's make it official. People are going to start trickling in because that's how it's a con and it's
leather time.
Definitely.
Oh my God, you're starting us on time. In my head, we were like late still, but no,
I run on time.
Wow. Okay, that's scary. All right, then. Hello, all you skibbies. This is Great Answer, not coming from the rope bondage capital of the world, coming to you from Sinergy III in Michigan with Nikki and Travis, who are the wonderful hosts and organizers here.
Hi, Gray.
They can see us. The people that are listening can't.
Oh,
we are doing this on Periscope.
Hi, Periscope.
Yes.
I know that's a terrible vision, it's terrible audio, but it's great visual. Hi.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of fun. And we have a special guest who's going to be coming on in shortly, Iron Temple Dog, who I invited for some very specific questions. Nope. Not in there.
No.
Yeah, all right. And I have to be a corporate shill here a little bit, just so you know. Sorry, but
I understand.
I do have a sponsor for this podcast.
Sponsors are important.
Yes,
they pay
are.
the bills. We couldn't
really
do this wonderful event without them, so please pay your bills.
So our sponsor is Karma Rope. Have you heard of Karma Rope?
I have heard of Karma Rope. I listened to the Ropecast.
All right, well then you know about Karma Rope. Have you in the audience heard about Karma Rope?
Not yet.
They have not heard about Karma Rope. Let me tell you about Karma Rope. Karma Rope is a little company in Minneapolis, and they have an interesting model for selling rope. They do rope as a pay-what-you-can model. So if you say, I really want to try out some of this fancy-ass hemp rope or this fancy jute rope, but I don't really have the $180 it takes to really get a good kit, and plus what if I don't like it, what if I'm allergic to it, that kind of thing. So what you can do is you can tell them, hey, I would like to have 4 lengths of jute. Now, it's not fancy. I mean, it's not all conditioned, not conditioned at all. In fact, they just kind of pull it off the spool, stick it into a Ziploc bag, and mail it to you.
That's my favorite.
But you get to name whatever price you want. And that's because other people, like me, we pay more than what their cost is. And you'd think, oh my God, this is a business model that could never possibly work. I mean, they have to fold. Well, they've been in business, I don't know how many years now, but a few years, and they've actually been doing so well that they had to hire an employee full-time to do their orders and things like that. So they are one of only two companies I know that not only is the entrepreneur working at it, but also they have hired employees. The other one being, of course, Twisted Monk, who technically is not a sponsor of the podcast yet, but that'll change in 2 days.
By the time this podcast is up, right? I mean, technically.
Yeah, I guess technically, if we wait that long, I mean, honestly,
I don't know when you're posting it.
I don't edit.
There's no. We learned that the last time you interviewed us. You started it, and we were just chatting, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hi, we're live."
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm going to be doing more editing in the future because mea culpa. I fucked up with my last, not last podcast, but the one before that, and left in some information that I should have edited out. And so I've learned the hard way that I will be editing a little more carefully. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, karmarope.com is where you find their rope, and it's awesome stuff. I have used their stuff. In fact, my partner Hannah, who is here, she uses a piece of their hemp rope as her special personal rope for those special personal parts. And I can tell you that she's quite fond of it. So if you get a chance to even just to go to the site or let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring the Ropecast, they pay our bills, and we really appreciate that. They also are one of the 2 sponsors of the Personal Color Safe Space Scholarship that we're doing for Ropecraft.
I've been reading about that.
Yeah.
I'd like to. I've seen the snippets. I haven't gone and read yet.
So you're an event producer. You know that having people color space safe spaces is a thing that we try and do for
absolutely
when asked for, whatever. And it's kind of difficult for someone, say, of our skin tone to try and set up one that is it's like we can try, we can give a space, but for us saying here's what you need to have is kind of it sort of defeats the purpose. Instead, what we decided to do with, in conjunction with Karma Rope and with Twisted Monk, is at Ropecraft, we are providing not just the space, but we were able to also provide airfare and hotel and 2 comps for a POC safe space coordinator to come down. And their job is to come down and organize the safe space, with our support and stuff like. We're not going to say go do it and then leave them alone. But do that, and also hopefully, help to talk a little bit more about diversity and inclusion, because especially in the States these days, that's kind of something that's getting even more. It's more of an issue than I feel like I ever expected it to be in this day and age. I feel like almost, I don't know if it's that things are getting worse or if it's just a matter of we're seeing more of it. But I think it's an important thing.
It's a fantastic idea. I think it's a great thing. Anything that we can do to create dialogues is gonna be positive, because nothing's going to change if we can't talk.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Or if we don't talk.
Truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and although I'll be honest with you, part of the problem is not so much the talking sometimes, it's the listening.
Yes, we have to try to be able to listen as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be hard. That can be even harder than effectively communicating a message.
Yeah, especially that's actually that's part of the reason why I brought in our guest Iron Temple Dog, because I know one of the hardest things to deal with is to sit and listen to someone talk about how what you are, what your actions have done, how your actions have affected them. Because you can have, what's the saying, intention is not magic? So you can have the entire idea of, I didn't mean to do that. That's not what I meant when I said that thing. And, and microaggressions is a good example. I didn't mean that when I said that, and that's all well and good. I'm glad people don't mean to be assholes. It doesn't mean that they're not sometimes assholes. And so it's hard sometimes to hear someone saying, hey, what you did actually affected me, especially if what you did was not what you meant to do. And it's really hard to hear that and really hard to listen to that. And I get really, really defensive.
I was going to say non-defensively listening.
Yeah. And it's hard as fuck. And I'm not saying that as people should really be better at that. I'm saying like, oh my God, that is a skill that we do not develop. And my God, is it hard. I'm not very good at it. I have to sit there and just say, okay, Gray, you're just going to take your lips and shut them. And the seething anger that you're feeling and defensiveness, you're just going to seethe, and that's going to be it. And then later on, when you're not seething, you can respond.
You're absolutely right. And here I was, I had a little bit of downtime yesterday, and I ended up having a fantastic political conversation. Ironically, with
what?
I know, right? It was shocking. Ironically, with one of Iron Temple Dog's partners, and it was a fantastic. There was no yelling or screaming, and I really.
So you weren't talking about American politics?
Oh, we were talking.
You were, and there was no yelling and screaming.
I know. It was. That's hard to do nowadays, but we managed to keep the the level to about a 7, which is
That's pretty
and
good.
I felt like it was a great conversation because it was equal parts talking about how we thought and felt and trying to listen to each other. And it was a really good experience. And that's a hot button issue, just like any of those hot button issues. And like you said, creating a safe space for a POC, you bringing in a coordinator who can really do that because
and focus on it.
Because perhaps we aren't the best people to do that.
And not only do it, but do it with an internal knowledge of how to effectively not just provide it, but also to help people understand that they will be heard and understood on a very basic level. I know sometimes doing King production, it's really, really hard to create those spaces and to make people feel welcome in them.
I think I just heard before we were setting up here that you were setting up a women's space here.
We have, because Nikki and I are so rooted in the leather community, we spend most of our time going to leather events and stuff. We want a place for our leather brothers and sisters to be comfortable. So we have a men's only space. It's for male identified folk. And that's self-identified. There's not a lot of
You don't do a genital check on the door?
Policing. No, we are not doing policing. Same thing with the female space. No, there's no genital.
You're picturing the genital check, aren't you, Nikki?
Now, consensual genital check. You come see me at registration. We can talk.
Hey, Geeky King event, you should do a chromosomal check. They should do it there.
I mean, but we're fortunate enough to have enough space that we can provide 2 smaller spaces for that sort of energy, for a men's only energy and a women's only energy. And ideally, as we continue to grow, and you came last year, Greg, we've added square footage this year. We still have room to grow in our facility.
I was looking at this dungeon here. Oh my God, it is pretty amazing. It was looking at the tables set out. I'm thinking, okay, the tables must be for like a dinner, and then I'm realizing no, these is every play space has its own every PlayStation. No. Every piece of equipment has its own table there, and that is such a luxury. Oh my God!
How many times have we been to events where that's not an option? And I mean, good events, but they just don't have the space or the equipment to do it. And I'm not reinventing the wheel. I saw it at another event, and I asked my hotel. I was like, "Can we make this happen?" And they were like, "Sure." I was like, "That's awesome."
The best things, yeah.
Absolutely. And we're able to do it. Our play space now is we're over 11,000 square feet this year.
Wow.
So that's how big this room is. And then the men's and women's spaces, because a lot of people do feel safe playing in our pan space, which is I really like seeing. But those energies, each of those are about 2,000 square feet each. So they're sizable, and we're trying to bring those up. And ideally, in the long term, as we continue to expand, cross fingers, never count chickens before they're hatched. But if we can continue to expand, I would like to institute things like all-day play and a rope space and different things. Anything I like trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't.
And you both mentioned that you came up in the leather scene so that. So for those Ropecast listeners who are unfamiliar with leather, what is leather?
I'm going to make Nikki answer that.
Simple question. Oh, come on. You guys have competed. You've had this question before.
Oh, yeah, that's why I was
going to say.
And as an owner property company.
Contest answer.
Yes.
That's fine. I think that having been rooted in the leather community for us is a very different experience than another power dynamic couple. Sometimes you have to take what you have learned from everyone else and kind of make it your own. So my leather probably doesn't look like your leather.
Yes, because yours has a big patch on the back that says you're a winner.
Well, there's that.
You won a title.
Absolutely. Yes, we did.
No, that actually is definitely one, because you chose the path of going and competing, which is, I recognize, is a very difficult path to do in leather. So I deliberately do not choose that path.
It's also important, I
Are you
think.
sure? Because
Come on, Greg.
No. I know this is how it happens.
Yes,
I can resist you.
It can be it can be challenging, and it can also be really rewarding because you can use that title to do a lot of different things. We've seen in the last few years, title holders use their titles to travel to foreign countries where LGBTQ people are persecuted and executed and jailed, and trying to meet with groups that are trying to change the laws locally in these foreign countries.
Gotcha.
And
we've also been able to learn about organizations like the Rainbow Railroad,
Yes.
who helps people escape very dangerous situations, very dangerous countries. We've had some amazing opportunities to meet some amazing people from all over the world with completely different life experiences than Sir Travis and I have had. In so many ways that it really makes you stop and think, if one decision had been different, my entire last 5 years would be an entirely different conversation. So we've been very fortunate to really kind of trip into some amazing leather folk as well as king folk. I mean, I don't want to exclude our king folk.
How do you think, as people, I'm not sure how familiar you are with necessarily the rope scene, but in general, what would you say is the difference between the rope community and leather community? What's different about them?
There you go.
I'm gonna be Gray. I'm gonna be really honest, because I've had some great experiences with people like you and some of the presenters we've met. I know I've had some really bad experiences too, and it's alienated me a little bit. Now, people don't know, I'm a rope top, and we were joking.
I know, yeah, you were saying how to be a rope top.
How to be a rope top and not let anybody know it, because nobody knows that I can tie a bit, and I have an intermediate level of skill.
So being very careful not to identify anyone.
Oh no, no.
Can we talk about what are the things that made that interaction unpleasant?
I felt
those interactions.
I felt there were some interactions where I was genuinely seeking knowledge, and because maybe the way I worded my question, or the question I asked, is a question they've received 1,000 times, and I felt very dismissed. And thankfully, it's one of those things. I have had good experience with people like you and some of our presenters that I've met, and some of the presenters I've met elsewhere, that I'm like, well, I understand it's just a few select things, but it is discouraging. And I think we deal with that too. It's not just a rope community exclusive thing. I know that's kind of what's the difference is. I think the rope community and the leather community, the kink community and the poly community, I think we deal with a lot of the same overriding issues. They're just in the context of those kinks and dynamics. So it's not just a rope community issue. I don't want to make it seem like that either, because I know that happens everywhere. I've heard it. I've heard it. I tried to get into the leather community and I had a really bad experience, and you hear that.
Leatherer than thou.
Yeah, and you're
ropier than that.
And it makes my heart sink when I hear. I'm like, oh, poop. I'm like, that's just not good. I don't want somebody to have a bad experience at all. So I don't know if there is, other than the actual focus of what we're learning and actively doing, a lot of the interactions that we have and the social interactions, because we're all human at our core.
I think if I can expand on that for just a second, I think the one thing we all have in common is it all comes down to assumption.
Assumption?
Mm-hmm.
How do you mean assumption?
I know that he has had one particular negative experience was the person he asked the question assumed that I am a brand new rope bottom.
Oh.
I'm not, for anyone curious.
I think she's coughing in your direction, Greg.
Yes.
So, and the point, I don't know if I think the camera saw that, so you're busted.
Good.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
No, but I think that once you have one or two negative experiences in the rope community or the leather community or the kink community, I think it does take you, and I think it does kind of make you not want to keep reaching out.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually a perfect segue to bring in our guest.
Yes.
We love
Yes,
that.
because so we're gonna maybe you two are gonna share.
Yeah, we're gonna share.
I'm going to go.
You're gonna go do coordinator things?
gonna go
There
do
is an event going on.
coordinator and fun things.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So our it's kind of funny you mentioned you had some rope presenters here. I almost made this Ropecast sort of a Ropecraft preview because you have so many people here that are also going to be.
Is it?
Lizard is going to be presenting at Ropecraft. Ruff is going to be presenting at Ropecraft, and also one of our Rashomon from the Austin Ropecraft. Actually, I don't think I've asked you if you're coming to the next one. You are coming to NOLA? Putting you on the spot here.
Let's put him on the mic and hopefully.
I have a number of emails from them.
Okay.
Confirming all of
We
that.
are. Okay, good.
So
Presenter
I know
brain.
that I know that they're not directly from you. But
Yeah.
They do have your name on them.
Okay, awesome. So yes, so this is Iron Temple Dog,
Hello, everyone.
current title holder of the Hot Ash competition from Ramble Brew.
That's right.
And so you are a cigar aficionado. You are you identify as leather, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And you also are active in the rope community.
Mhm.
So you kind of branch all spectra here. So so the question that we were, you heard what we were discussing before about, how do you, once you have a bad experience, you can do that. And I talked to you about this before of, and people who are listening can't see Iron Temple Dog, which is unfortunate because he is a beautiful specimen of human being.
Flattery.
Yes, absolutely. But I will also say that if I did not know you as well as I do, and I was walking down a dark alley, and you were walking the other way, and you had a grumpy look on your face, I would get the fuck out of your way, because you are very very well built. You have a beautiful beard, but it could be considered a biker beard perhaps. You have lots of beautiful ink on your arms and stuff like that, and so these are all things that can be intimidating to people in various spaces. And yet I know for a fact that you navigate queer spaces and people, you interact with people, and I've seen you interact with people, and somehow you manage to take this cishet white male appearance presentation and somehow make it not threatening, or somehow manage to avoid that kind of situation. What is your secret?
That's a good question.
No pressure. We can edit it into making you say anything we want to. So.
Yeah,
I mean, anything you want to. That's what
So,
I'm saying.
okay, I'm a backstory kind of guy, so let's start a little further back. Once upon a time, I wasn't this person.
Okay.
I was, I think probably the easiest thing to say is significantly less pleasant.
Ah, okay.
And just kind of a number of people in my life and events in my life were pretty educational with regards to the impact of my actions. And so tying more the edges down, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what that looks like in practicality now is that when I'm meeting people, I make a conscious effort to be sincere, be open, and where possible, be slightly vulnerable.
Interesting. Vulnerable. What does that look like?
Well, actually, it's interesting because it started as a just an absolute failure of small talk. I'm not really good. Like someone will say, what do you think about the weather? I'm like, I don't. So in conversation, I try to find common ground and share experiences and listen to experiences. And when I'm first meeting somebody, do my best to create open dialogue on whatever it is that they want to talk about.
Okay, so being open and listening as opposed to presenting and saying, this is what I'm going to talk about now.
Yeah. And in the more recent past, the last couple of years, I've been working pretty hard to sort of, in the kink is kind of my life these days, and so I've been working pretty hard to flip a lot of the scripts. The person who teaches me the most about rope is the person who bottoms for me the most.
Gotcha.
They're really, I would call them my mentor, and that's Tender, by the way.
I was going to say, can we mention their name? Because
Yeah,
I think I know you're talking about.
Yeah. Tender teaches produces a event in Toronto called Coil. It's rope arm focused, open space-ish sort of thing. And so they're quite a good instructor, and that's been really helpful. And it's interesting, it ties in directly to the stuff you were talking about earlier, because for years and years I cannot identify as a rope guy, just because I had a very small handful of very negative encounters, sort of back to back to back in the early years when I started learning about rope.
Did they have anything in common, like equality or something, or were they split? Or was it different bad experiences?
They were assumptive, like Travis mentioned. One of them involved someone who I don't really think knew anything more about rope than I did. Actually taking rope out of my hands while I was tying. And another one was a very dismissive encounter, like the thing that Travis had said, and another one was just really bad disrespect. The person wasn't particularly, he was just poorly socialized, raised by wolves, you know. But the key element there is arrogance and assumption. They were so certain they knew so much more about rope than I did, or about kink in general than I did, or whatever, that they just kind of jumped in.
So I'm in direct situation to both of you. This is an interesting. I'm very interested to get this perspective from three head-presenting cis white guys of a certain age. It's very important that our voices be heard. But it actually is important that our voices are heard in this particular subject, because this is a subject that is not talked about enough, and it is not anybody else's problem but ours to solve. And that is that I think that idea of the assumptive and the I'm going to do this instead and things like that, those are all aspects of what I've been thinking in my head as the term is toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Okay. And I like the differentiation between toxic masculinity and masculinity, because for a long time I had trouble when people say, I want to dismantle the patriarchy. And, I was a single father with 4 daughters, and I'm like, I'm a patriarch. Why are you trying to dismantle me? I'm working very hard. And it took a while to realize there's a difference between being a father and the patriarchy. Dismantling the patriarchy does not mean, in fact, my taking care of my 4 kids was part of dismantling the patriarchy. Exactly. And it took me a while to realize that. But this idea, I don't think that masculinity needs to go away, but there are definitely aspects of masculinity that are toxic.
Yep.
And I think that with the recognition that we are all human and are all imperfect, I think all 3 of us have tried to take steps to identify what is toxic about masculinity, retain our own masculine identities anyway, and fight whatever that toxicity is. So I would like to find out, what do you think of when you think of the word toxic masculinity, and also, has there been anything where you feel like, you've been able to counter it, either personally or in other people?
Well, I mean, I think there's some interactions that I've seen in my journey where there's that assumption that the masculine is automatically the dominant, the top. Like we've seen that. Mm-hmm. You go to a lunch and Mr. Donnelly McDonpants comes in. He's going to dom every woman in the room, and he has no respect for anyone who happens to be female and dominant. And you just have to be like, no. I feel like, and I know I say it a little bit jokingly, roll up a newspaper and hit them on the nose and say, no, no. and I mean, that's obviously you're not going to do that, but it's probably going to involve an uncomfortable conversation, and sometimes you have to have an uncomfortable conversation, and you have to put yourself out there in all sorts of situations, and that's an example, I think, where you're like, you have to say, hey man, what the fuck, yeah, I'm like, and you have that little look on your face, I'm sure, like,
is this really happening?
That's especially hard with the whole consent violations and consent incidents and things like that. I have several people that have been friends of mine who I've had to say, hey, what I'm hearing that you did or what has been said that you did is something bad. And unfortunately, the response is usually, I didn't do that, and the defensive walls come up and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, I didn't wait for you to answer your part of the question. So.
No, totally fine. Before King Chris, kind of my entire life, I spent a lot of years, 25 of them, being a bouncer in bars. And so dealing with toxic masculinity was actually my job. And I think most people who spent any time in a bar at all will recognize this guy. He's had a few too many drinks. He's not thinking clearly, kind of aggressive, really mad because X, Y, or Z random, ridiculous thing that actually probably had nothing to do with him happened. And he starts getting aggressive with someone in the bar, maybe me or maybe one of the other staff or maybe the patron. And now I have to go talk to him. Sorry. Now I have to go talk to him. And so the way that often goes down is, hey, I need you to quit your job. Or listen, I have a couple of complaints, or roll it back a couple of notches. Everybody just wants to have fun here. And the second I'm involved, especially if he's there with a partner, the aggression cranks right up.
Of course.
Because I have a hyper-masculine appearance, and he can't be seen to be disrespected, or he can't
not in front of a partner.
He can't be seen. Well, not in front of
everybody too.
100 people.
Not just a partner, but like
anybody
that huge
at all.
crowd.
Sorry, if anybody at all.
You have such a great voice. Like, we're trying to get you to talk into the mic because it's fantastic.
I keep hearing myself breathing in the mic.
That's okay. We'll edit it out in post.
Yeah, fair. It's not happening. And so there have been a number of occasions where that didn't go very well. I don't actually mean to be a jerk about this, but for them.
Okay.
And I actually consider those failures. Because I've never been in the job. I was never in the job for that. I don't like fighting. Can't get for getting all that out of my system. But I really like the real successes where I can go, listen, this doesn't have to happen this way at all. Just there's been a misunderstanding. This thing you're doing isn't great. And all we really want is for you to stop that and keep it stopped. You're welcome to stay if you can manage that. And if you can't, you're welcome to come back another time when you've had less drinks. And interestingly, I think anyway, that's a function of exactly the same thing I was talking about earlier, with talking somebody down off that ledge is mostly about listening and being vulnerable. Making myself able to identify with them, which can be a real challenge sometimes, because some smash douchebag pounding Jaeger bombs with his sunglasses on the back of his neck, and I really just want to throw him out of a window. So being nice to him is hard, and listening to him is hard, and trying to identify with where he's coming from is hard. But making the effort's a little more valuable than having to explain to a police officer at 4 a.m. why he's got a broken jaw.
I remember quite a while ago tying at a bar, and it was a fetish night, and people were really, we were up on stage, but it was a short stage, and there was uncha music going on, and I had my bottom in a very vulnerable position on the tripod, and this guy came up on the stage, drunk off, frat boy, drunk off his ass. And I tried to say, hey, you need to move back, and his response was to get closer and be like, I can get up here if I want to, kind of thing. And I found myself I did not have what you were saying of the I'm going to make myself vulnerable and things like that. My reaction was to get hyper protective. It was like Mama Bear, in front of my bottom, and I was ready to deck him and just, slam him off the stage. And the funny thing is that it was another friend of mine. I can't remember who it was, but anyway, another friend of mine kind of talked him down, did all the things that I should have done. But I was in the rope space, and it wasn't that I was in rope top spaces and this is mine or whatever. Instead, it was I am the rope top, I am responsible for my bottom safety, and oh my God, this person is about to do this. No, you shall not pass.
And that right there, and I understand completely. I have, again, much to my shame, I had nights where that was just what happened. Some guy said something about my mother, and I'm like, I don't even care what I feel about my mother. You're just being. And now we're punching. But not. So anyway, that's a short circuit to toxic masculinity, right? Something somewhere told you that the right thing to do, and when I say something somewhere, I mean that we're socialized this way, men in particular, to respond with violence, and whether it's social violence or emotional violence or psychological violence or actually throwing a chair at somebody. It's pretty easy, even in people who have spent time working on it, to find a hook that will pull that right out.
Right.
Just because it's very, very deeply embedded. Like before we can talk,
but
oh, boys don't cry.
It's hard to, like you said, it's that deeply embedded to recondition yourself to something that's there, and it is a struggle, and and we're all fallible, we're all humans. So sometimes, like you said, you're like you were less than successful at times. I'm less than successful. I'm sure everybody has those stories where we're like, wow, I wish I handled that differently. And I try to focus on like, well, what could I have done? Let's not do that again. Let's fix that mistake.
What does next time look like?
Yeah, what does next time look like? Great way to describe it.
And I think one of the biggest difficulties, and it's a hard pill, bitter pill to swallow, is that we can do everything right on our end, and still have it taken as an aggressive act or a bad something bad. I can think of a few examples. One of them is from my time in the Marines. I was the prac private, which was the practical knowledge instructor for, go figure, I was an instructor in boot camp, and it was my job to get all the recruits up to speed on our practical knowledge, how to wash and the Marine Corps regulations and things like that, and that meant staying up at night and tutoring individuals who were having troubles and things like that. And there was one, and most of the Marines were just fine. There's one Marine who, no matter what I did, he was absolutely not, he was hostile to listening to me, he was hostile to me completely, no matter, and he was also struggling with the practical knowledge, but he was not, he did not want to listen to me. And finally at one point I'm like, why do you do this? And he said, no white man's ever done anything good for me, you ain't no different. And and at the time, I wish I could say, and at the time it was an enlightening thing. At the time it was just frustrating as fuck, and I got really angry and offended. I'm like, I'm just trying to help you. I realize you've had bad experiences with other white men, but I'm not them, and da 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 da. And in the benefit of hindsight, I have to sit here and go, you know what? It doesn't matter. My one drop of good intention does not change the fact that all of his other experiences with people who look like me have been bad. And taking that, fast forwarding that, if you are a male rope top and you are in a dungeon and you happen to, look appreciatively at some scene that's going on, and let's say that is by a female rope top, and they look at you and they're like, what the fuck are you looking at? I'm not doing this for you. There's that reaction of like, I didn't say anything. I didn't come over and try and correct you. I didn't do all these things that they say that I didn't do any of those things. All I did, you were in a public space and I'm looking. It's easy to get really defensive and all that. Yeah. Instead of putting yourself in their shoes and realizing, I think you brought this up earlier, that maybe the last 5 rope tops who went past looked and went, ooh, hey, honey, you want me to show you a better way to do it, or some stupid asshole thing like that. And so you coming up and looking, you know, they're not. You're right. They're not looking at you. They're looking at their own experience.
Yeah, they're looking at that past experience. They're going in their head and they're like, oh God, here comes another one. And
Right.
there's that assumption again where, hey, you may just be walking by and like, wow, that's really pretty rope. That's your only thought, and you're respecting what they're trying to do in that moment. But again, you know, because they've been conditioned and they've had these experiences, that's what's going to happen.
And that's the difficulty, is that, you know, the reaction, the hard part to understand is that saying, well, I didn't mean that and you are wrong, you know, your version of reality is false. No, their version of reality is based on their experience, and my version of reality is based on my experience.
Yeah.
And it's possible to be, does it sound familiar? It's possible to be in the same space and have the same situation happening and have two totally different experiences. And being able to accept that even though you have not done anything wrong, that the reaction to you may be bad, and making that, not trying to invalidate that is a very difficult thing to do. And I wish I could figure out how to teach people how to do that. Let me rephrase that. I wish I could figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And then I wish other people could. So if anybody out there knows how to teach people how to do that, please come and let me know.
I'm taking class bookings for next year. That's the first class booked. If somebody can teach that, I would love to book that.
Yeah.
I actually have a couple of things to say.
Yes,
The first one is that Travis said that maybe our theoretical female rope top was conditioned to that response, and actually absolutely conditioned by those first 5 guys who look just like us. And so they really can't be faulted for saying, well, here comes another one, looks just like the last, and 5 is my line, I'm done.
No more spoons.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
Or behold the field where I grow my fox and how it is barren.
It is barren. It looks like Mordor on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think, for me anyway, I don't know how effective this will be for anybody else, but when I feel myself going like, well, that's not what you don't know me. As soon as that feeling starts to go, I just shut my mouth. I actually physically close my mouth, and sometimes I sort of have to take a deep breath and just force myself to be present for whatever is happening and let them have it. Just sit down and shut up. It's not an ideal solution,
No.
but it does let the person have the space they need, which I think is a good start.
You know what's frustrating about it not being an ideal solution? It's another aspect of toxic masculinity. Travis, there's a problem. I need you to fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
And your response is, what do you need? You know, I mean, that's just that's that conditioned thing. And this, you know, this idea of there's a problem. Okay. That's, maybe it's something I can fix, and maybe it's something that I need to stay the fuck away from.
Would you like my help?
And even sometimes being like, I'm not even going to ask. I'll let them tell me if
Sometimes
they do.
it's super clear they don't.
Yeah, and it's really hard not to offer that. I've been, honestly, so there's two little weird disciplines I've been doing at events even. One is I will go to a class and I will say to myself before I get to the class, this class, I am not going to open my mouth once. I don't care what happens. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they're doing. Whatever happens, I'm going to just listen. And sometimes, you know, this is a class on, you know, Tetsukote, and that's totally not a controversial subject. So that's a joke, by the way, for you out there. It's totally a controversial subject. But I will just say it. But you know, I've been in classes on feminism and kink, and it has been very difficult to keep my mouth fucking shut. But at the same time, there is a liberating kind of, oh, okay, if I don't have to be the one engaging in things. So that's the one thing. The other thing I've been trying to do is I'm trying to find something every day that I cannot do. That I can see a situation where my urge, and maybe I'm talking it could be on Twitter, it could be on Facebook, it could be in my own head. I have, you know, a zillion projects always going on.
I've seen very clear evidence on Twitter doing exactly this.
Something where I can say, I see that situation, and I'm going to channel my inner Lee Harrington here. I recognize that path, and I am turning away from it, and deliberately doing that. just to try and make that into a discipline so that I can get past this whole, I have to fix things, I have to be, I have to accomplish things, I have to do this kind of thing. So, and the scary part is, and I'm going to be vulnerable here. The scary part is that part of me looks at the events that I put on and the podcast that I do and things like that, and I'm like, is all of this trying to overcompensate? And if I do take away that drive to, be of some, be relevant in the world, if I take that away, what will that look like? What do I have left? I don't know what that is.
Well, I think it's a balancing act because, you don't want it to be that. You don't want it to be attention seeking. Mm-hmm. That's not the goal. But, I feel most humans at their core want to contribute positively to their interactions with one another. One would hope. I understand. One would hope. And sometimes that manifests itself like you're hosting a podcast or producing an event or volunteering at an event or whatever it may be. But it can be a fine line. Like, where do we go from purely attention seeking to just trying to do some good for something you believe in? It's a razor's edge sometimes because you'll see it and it's teetering on that edge. You don't want to go too far, but you do want to be, hey, I can make somebody smile, I can make somebody do, whatever. And you're right, sometimes you have to just say, oh, I can't. I have to. You're right. It's a discipline. It's something. It's a learning experience.
Whatever you do, don't say "smile, honey."
No. I mean, like just simple things like, hey, can I help you?
Yeah.
And then if they refuse to help, then move on. But if they want to help, then you can actually help.
Well, she has something else that I was about to. We've been talking this whole feminist theory here for a long time. I was thinking maybe we'll talk a little bit about something a little less deep, because I think that the fact that you run an event like this and you hired a photographer like this to come and photograph the event.
Photography?
That's what they pronounce it in Canada.
Keep the film
I thought maybe
right up in the igloos.
Yeah. So I thought we would maybe talk about what goes into hot, good and hot photography, and let's talk about the hot and sexy stuff for a little bit.
So it gets into a little bit of the event producing part. Like I want somebody where I'm like, I look at their photos and I'm like, damn, that's a good photo. I mean, like I'm like, hot. I know I've seen their body of work, at least some of it, and important in the event producing realm. I mean, this is getting a little bit away from the sexy, but I need somebody that I know I can trust, because
trust is sexy as hell.
and we have a pretty strict no photo. Last year we had no photos. We just didn't. We were stepping up into this hotel facility, and we didn't want to do it, and people wanted it. And it was like, okay, we've heard them. Let's see if we can address that. And I was really impressed with the work that you did with the Rashomon programs and whatnot. And I obviously Iron Top Dog being now a part of that. And he presented here last year. There was already a pre-existing relationship. He's a damn good photographer.
Yes, he is.
And we had some discussion. Oh well, it's working because he's here, and he's the only one authorized to take photos in the entire event space. And I know that he's going to be diligent in getting us hot and sexy photos for the people that want it, and there's not going to be any issues with people in the background or any outings or any these are going to be strictly controlled. That's very important. So
how do you, Iron Blog, find a good, what is it that you look for through your lens that this is the moment I want to capture?
Wow, a lot of that's not super conscious. So there's two things, and I guess I'm actually doing both of them at this event. One is broadly staged photographs, and I don't really look for anything in those. I make what I want. You sit there, lift your chin, chest out slightly, arms back a little, lift your elbows up. I can do all that stuff, and put the lights in the right place, and make everything look the way it's going to look good. And There's some like composition formulas that are really simple. Rule of thirds, golden spiral, stuff like that. That's our theory, and I'm not going to bother. If you're into it, we can talk. But the other thing is there's a pretty common conception of what looks good. And I'm not talking specifically about male gaze, although it does absolutely play into that. We all want photos of ourselves that make us look the way we'd like to look. And so having conversation with people about that, or when I'm shooting documentary style, which is the other sort of thing that I'm doing here, is I'm documenting stuff. I try to pay attention to what's happening in the class and keep my hands on the camera and get ready to shoot. Your takedown class, I kind of blew that a couple of times because I was like absorbed enough in the class that I was like, oh, this is a really good moment and I probably should be photographing it.
Gray has a way of doing that too.
That's okay. There are enough pictures of me out there. I can tell you one thing. When I have seen the pictures that you have taken of me and I in particular, my first thought was to say, you take photographs that make us look the way that we feel, but that's not quite exactly true because, and as anyone who has ever posed or done things for photographs or done a performative type thing, if you're a good performer, you can look like you are completely engaged and hot and turned on and whatever, and in reality you're going like, I wonder if I turned off my coffee heater at home before I left. What did I do? Shoot, was that okay? Do I have how many places? All these other things in your head.
Yeah.
So I will say the photographs. I don't know why they.
The photographies.
I am now just going to say photographs, and it is going to be the way that we say it from now on. The photographs that I really enjoy seeing of yours are the ones that make it look like we feel the way that I want to feel. Or I wanted us to feel. And sometimes it is the way we felt.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is totally the way we felt, but sometimes it is more of a, man, I really wish I had done that, but hey, you know what, you captured that moment, and that is that is special enough. So
one of the things I really like, and so I often, when people ask me how I got started in photography, I say metal shows.
Metal shows.
Yeah, metal shows.
Okay.
Because it was kind of a seminal turning point for me. I went out and photographed all these obscure Finnish bands who don't sing in English, and I had a really great time doing it. I
can totally see you doing it.
It's not hard. And I'm still in love with those bands. I don't shoot them anymore. But that's actually not entirely true. I used to work for a craft brewery back in Toronto, and they were very kind to their employees. There was a staff patio that non-staff weren't allowed on, and after a shift, when everybody had wrapped up, we could go back to the patio and have a couple of beers and hang out with our pals. And I started taking photos of those folks just because they were handy. And I realized the thing I really like in quotes, candid portraiture is I like being able to look at a photo and go, that is a really typical moment for that person. I like the person who's in the photo to be able to go like, it's really got me, and there's something about posture and emotion and the way people move and gesture and speak that I love to catch. I can actually go on through this forever, but essentially I took one photo once of this dude Rylan, and Rylan he had a beer partway to his lips, and he was in the middle of speaking, and he had his sunglasses up on his head, and he was kind of pointing, right? And this was so clearly Rylan making a point. I've been watching him do it for a couple of years, and I was so proud to have that photo, and I showed it to him. Immediately went and asked me for a copy, and immediately went and put it up as his Facebook profile.
Oh, nice.
And it was this weird moment. I still have this thing where people take my photos and put them on their Facebook profiles, and I'm like, nobody ever puts a photo that they hate on social media, right? So
good point. It's showing the highlights, right?
Yeah, exactly. The people out there really love that. So I really, as time went on, I just got really focused on it.
Travis, what's your favorite picture of you or of you and Nikki?
There's two. and both of them were, like you said, they're candids. They were in the moment photos. They weren't meant to be like staged. I feel like there's some really good like the staged photos. But my two favorites. One of them is actually we're presenting at Great Lakes Letter Alliance in October. You can go see it on their website. It's our profile picture there. I'm trying to like bite her face in the photo, and it's just the most ridiculous. And you know, when people talk leather, it's just serious business, you know.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, like it was. We were, and I want to say we were at like IML or something when that photo was taken, and I'm like, and she's dying laughing, and we're just in this moment. That one's fantastic. And the other one is for our, let me count because I don't want to get the number wrong, because fifth.
Just say all the numbers. And
all the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to say.
I'll edit in the right number.
It was our 5th anniversary together. We had a scene at an event where I had been going to debauchery, obviously. Talked with Dr. Tentacle, fabulous presenter that they've had down there, and learned some liquid nitrogen play. And I've only given Nicky flowers twice. We've been together.
You know what? I think I've been burned by him, actually. I mean, in a good way.
Yes. We've been this August will be 7 years together. And at the 5-year point, I had only given her flowers one time. I had given her one rose up to 5 years. So for our 5th anniversary, we had a scene where we did the liquid nitrogen play, and part of it I was, the regular play, and then I froze her anniversary bouquet of flowers and caned her with them. And there is a shot of me throwing a giant cup of liquid nitrogen at her, and it's exploding all over her, and and she's on the cross, and I love that photo. Those are my two favorite photos. It kind of encapsulates like the silliness and then our connection. So
beautiful. Do you have you mentioned the one at Ryland. Do you have a favorite photograph of all time? If you had You're on a desert island. You only get to take one photo that you've ever taken with you.
Sadist.
Which one do you take with you?
I think after I probably shoot 10,000 photos a year, and I've been shooting that actively for 4 years, so probably over 50,000 photos. To give you some idea. My favorite photo is a photo I took walking down the street with a woman who was not my ex-wife, and it was just dusk, and I had this 4 megapixel pocket camera, and it was the first camera I'd ever owned, and so I was taking pictures of everything. I thought it was kind of neat. And we walked past this yellow callaway, and it was this single thing, and it's over 3 feet tall, and it was just on the other side of this fence, and it was a sort of very heavily sculpted Mediterranean style front yard, and I just kind of took my camera and I looked at the back of it because I had one screen on the back, and I went, okay, I'm going to take that picture, and I snapped it, and it flashed, and just the way that the flash worked and the way the lawn was set up and everything, what I got was this beautifully illuminated yellow cowroy and this velvety black background with nothing else on it. So this flower floating in a sea of blackness.
Shades of Maplethorpe.
It is the best photograph I have ever taken. And I took it with a camera that I think cost me $60. And it was among probably the first 2 dozen photos I ever took. I couldn't recreate that photo if I really wanted to. It's out there on the web somewhere, but
nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we are about out of time. Travis, thank you for inviting the Ropecast to be here live.
No, Gray. I appreciate you bringing it. It was fun. It was exciting. I like these interactive things. Get a couple people to come out, and we can just sit around and talk. So I thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
And Iron Temple Dog, thank you for coming and doing what you do. And great. What you do. You guys are making my event they don't come to see me. I promise. They can.
We came to see you.
Well, okay. Well, thank you. I'll take the compliment.
One of the highlights of my life still is running into you and Nikki in the airport and to see you guys that one.
That was just
So Synergy, where can people find out more about the event?
Social media is probably the biggest one. Like I said, we're already kind of kicking around Synergy IV. We don't have a date yet, but synergymi.com. Thank you, Debauchery.
Right.
Great people. We all borrow ideas. You can also find us on Twitter at
SynergyMI.
At SynergyMI. Pretty much anywhere on social media. FetLife, if you're on FetLife, we are Synergy on FetLife, and we have it's hyphens on each side. But if you search Synergy, there we also have a group, and there'll be the next year's event up. And that's pretty much where we are, and we try to get out and about and get the word out. But thank you for helping us with that.
Absolutely. Iron Temple Dog, where can we find your work? Anywhere online? Or?
So my photography company is Valhalla Images. Twitter, Instagram. I have a website that is a work in progress. You're welcome to go look at it. It's valhallaimages.com.
Excellent.
But there's about a dozen shots on there that rotate every now and then. So that's me.
All right, great. Well, thank you both for coming. Thank you, studio audience. Make loud noises. All right.
And I want to thank Travis and Nikki and all of the staff at Synergy for making me and Naya feel so welcome there. It was a lot of fun. I even got to try out a brand new class while I was there, which was surprising. It was the Aesthetics of Suffering in Japanese Bondage. And I want to give a quick shout out to the Kimbakunamicon podcast, which has recently kind of upped the ante and put it up to video now. And wow, I actually feel like I need to maybe up my game as well, especially since my patrons are deserving of more stuff. You can help support this podcast by going to patreon.com/ropecast and give it a chance. And it's easy to cancel it if you happen to either decide you don't want to support the Ropecast anymore, want to support other things. And I should add, a portion of what I get from my patrons also goes to support other creators like Sinclair Sexsmith and author Cameron Hurley and N.K. Jemison, who are people that I think also deserve support. So you're spreading lots of good by doing that kind of thing. Also, of course, I have to thank Iron Temple Dog, not only for the fact that he helped out on this particular podcast, but also for his ongoing support of the Rashomon concept. I'll be in San Francisco on August 14th teaching the first training session for Rashomon, and right now we have 20 people enrolled. We have room for 10 more, so if you are interested in that, you can go to rashomon.info and find out more. Meanwhile, I'm off to the San Diego GRU this weekend, and if you missed that one, you can still get tickets, but there's also a Boston GRU coming up in a couple of weeks. So that would be a lot of fun, and I haven't been to the Boston area in a while. You can find out more about that, of course, at boston.gru.space. And, of course, my sponsors. Yes, that's right, I said plural. At the beginning of this podcast, I only mentioned Karma Rope, but you heard me mention towards the in the middle of the last podcast that Twisted Monk was going to be sponsoring, and he has. And so, yeah, this podcast is now sponsored by both Karma Rope and Twisted Monk Rope. So go to twistedmonk.com. He has a great new color of the month coming out. I'm not sure if it's announced yet, so I can't say it. All I can say is I looked at the picture and I went, ooh. And karmarope.com, which is a great way to try out or get the kind of rope that you might use, for a giveaway or to condition your own kind of stuff. In fact, I had a person recently asked me, what kind of rope should I buy? I don't know what to do. Budget is a concern. I said, well, if budget is a concern, that's exactly why you go to karmarope.com, because you can decide exactly how much you're going to pay for the rope, and that way you're sure it fits in your budget. So hopefully she took the advice, and she and her husband are off tying her up in compromising positions. Anyway, I can't think of anything else to blather on about, so I'm going to say that if you have any comments or questions about this particular podcast or the concepts therein, please feel free to contact me, greatanswer@gmail.com. I'm Great Answer on Twitter. I'm Great Answer on FetLife. I'm even Great Answer on Facebook, although I try to avoid that particular den of iniquity. And in the meantime, I will be here in the rope bondage capital of the world for a few more days. That's some good rope.